Hello, this is Unlimited Splash, where I play too many colors and try to get away with it. I post a new draft video every day, and if that sounds cool to you, here's a link to subscribe. But since it's Christmas, I wanted to do something special, and instead I'm going to offer 5 tips for how to succeed and maybe win at a Magic the Gathering tournament. So specifically, this is a limited channel, so I'm going to be focusing on draft and sealed. And I'm talking about local events here. I'm not going to teach you how to win the Pro Tour or anything. But over the last 16 years or so, I've won and lost more Friday Night Magics and pre-releases than I can count. I recently won a regional championship qualifier, and I've done okay at the arena win-a-box event. Some of my swag is back there. So I do have a few thoughts to share. My first tip, number 1, is that you should have a practice for avoiding tilt. I can't tell you how many times I've sat down across from someone to play them at a local event, and I can immediately see that they are still carrying over bad emotions from the last match. The moment that happens, honestly, I already feel like I'm in a strong position to win that game, right? So the thing is, in a full day of Magic, frustrating things are going to happen to you inevitably. And what really matters is that you arrive at the tournament with a plan for how you are going to handle those frustrating things when they do occur. I'm gonna link a video that hugely influenced how I think about this, which is by the Chess International master, Greg Shahade. In the video, he shows how he maintains a spreadsheet to track how his chess rating kind of goes up and goes down over time. And the video really taught me that tilt is often about over-fixating on when you got unlucky and not noticing the vast majority of normal or even lucky games that you have. During events, I always make sure to, first of all, take a quiet moment between every round where I pause, I just sit back, take a deep breath, and I just reset my mind for the upcoming match. And in that moment, I remind myself that it doesn't matter what happened in the last match, whether it went great for me or whether I got mana screwed, had 2 mulligans to 5. The next round is a brand new game, and your chances of getting lucky or unlucky are reset. It can also help in moments when you get lucky during a tournament to pause for a moment and just focus on how that feels. Maybe even write down when you drew your bomb at the perfect moment. And then when you get unlucky later on in the day, you can reflect on something that actually went well and remind yourself that bad luck is always temporary. The reason I'm starting with this tip also is because Magic is a game that's supposed to be fun, especially at the Friday Night Magic level. If you find yourself getting angry, then you need to solve that problem first before you can even think about Magic fundamentals, like do I have a high enough creature count and how is my curve? Right? Okay, my second tip is that you need to eat. There's a video that I like by where Bobby Fischer went on the Dick Cavett show, a talk show 50 years ago, and Fischer talks about how chess is a physically draining athletic sport, and the audience laughs as soon as he says it. And okay, Bobby Fischer was wrong about a lot of things, but that he was absolutely right about, and the same is absolutely true of Magic. At a regional championship qualifier or RCQ tournament, you might play half a dozen rounds of sealed, and then you get to the top 8, and those 8 people get to draft, right? So you might be there from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. playing Magic, often with almost no breaks. So I would say don't just bring snacks. You would need to eat multiple meals in that span. And the same is absolutely true of Friday Night Magic, where you might be coming straight from work or straight from school. And I constantly hear people talking about how hungry they are at Friday Night Magic. And same thing for the online win-a-box tournaments, where it's even easier to zone out in front of your computer, honestly, and neglect your physical needs. So at every single one of those events, make sure that you are actually eating a sufficient amount of food. Tip number 3, whether you're playing sealed draft or a sealed and draft tournament, my tip is just draft, draft, and draft. So obviously this only applies to limited events, but I do think it applies to even entirely sealed events. Because first of all, obviously at Friday Night Magic, if you're going to a draft, then draft practice matters. But even at the RCQ, I'd say almost all of your prep should be on drafting rather than on sealed, because drafting is a skill that transfers to sealed, but sealed is much less transferable to draft. So goes back to something that actually Paul Cheon often says, which is that it's a great sign if your sealed deck looks like a good draft deck. If you know what a good draft deck looks like, then you know exactly what, or something very similar to what you want to aim for in building your sealed deck. And also, especially at the regional championship qualifier tournaments or RCQ, draft skills are actually what's most important, because ultimately you only have to do well enough at the sealed portion to be in the top 8 to get to draft. But at the end of that, you're going to have to actually spike a draft of 8 people to come in first and get the invite. So if you're pretty good at sealed, you're still going to need to be great at draft to win. Even worse in that setting, by the time you draft, you're actually going to be exhausted already from playing a full day of sealed. So it's a huge advantage if you're familiar enough with the cards and the archetypes that your brain can just go into autopilot while you're really tired and still put together a good draft deck. My fourth tip is that if there is a time limit, so not in the Arena Win-A-Box events, but definitely at pre-release and definitely at the RCQs, then you need to practice finding the floor of your sealed pool. And usually at these events, you get about an hour to build your deck. At the RCQ, you also need to register your deck in that time, which is writing out the cards you have on a piece of paper. So you need to be able to build your best sealed deck, or a really good one, in about 45 minutes. The way I typically approach this is I try to find the floor of my pool. That is, can I get a high floor where I know, relying very heavily on fast heuristics, like just which color has the most bombs, that I have an okay deck that I can fall back on. I just stare at it for a while, I look at that deck, and I make sure I know what it looks like. Then I spend the rest of the time either optimizing that deck or doing some playing around with zany combinations or color pairs that maybe don't have bombs or initially looked a little bit weaker. But I can do that exploration with the comfort that worst case scenario, I'm just reverting to the high floor that I found in the first literally 5-10 minutes, and I have an okay deck to fall back on. Step number 5 is to set yourself up to enjoy the experience with realistic goals. So there are better ways to make money or get famous than by playing Magic cards. For almost all of us, this is a hobby that we do for fun. And you want to play in the tournament with a mindset that's going to make that possible. So at Friday Night Magic, I really don't have, you can't win every week. I'm always happy if I go 2-1. 1-2 can be fun too. I mean, my goal really is just to have fun at Friday Night Magic. Any result, and I'll just try to have fun. In the Arena Win-A-Box events, I want to win the box, but I've noticed that really only the first 1 or 2 buy-ins are fun for me. After that, it's just a grind. So I try to limit myself to only 1 buy-in per day while the event is live, because that's just a goal that lets me have fun. And at RCQs, I love drafting, so my goal is always to make the top 8. But if I win the top 8, that's kind of a cherry on top for me. I'm not going to be disappointed if I make the top 8 and then lose. At my first Pro Tour qualifier, for example, there were a lot of people playing who had just lost on day 1 of the Pro Tour, so I knew it was a really strong pool of competitors. And so my goal was just not to embarrass myself in that setting. I said if I win 1 match, I'm actually going to be happy in this level of play. And I ended up with a 2-2 record, and then dropping after the 2 losses. So obviously I didn't qualify for the Pro Tour, but I exceeded my goal. And so I was able to walk away from that experience actually being happy. Okay, so if you're thinking about playing in a local Magic tournament, I hope those 5 tips helped. And if you want to see a new draft every day, please go ahead and subscribe.